Hi, you guys. I am so excited. I have got two-time Grammy Award-winning artist Lecrae on the show today. All right. He is talking about his new book, I Am Restored. He's talking about a single that he did with John Legend, his rise to fame, everything that happened in his life from growing up to where he is today. There is so much awesome details in this interview. You're absolutely going to love it. So stay tuned. It's coming up right now. Lecrae, thank you so much for coming. Lecrae's in the house. How are you?
Wonderful. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I read your book. I've watched your videos, everything.
Wow.
Everything. Yeah, it's the world of Lecrae. You have such an interesting background that is so fascinating. When I was reading your book, I Am Restored, one of the things that really interested me about your background is how vulnerable and how open to talking about like your childhood and growing up and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell some of our listeners a little bit more about like your growing up? And I mean, I know some of it, but just to like hear your story, because you're very honest and truthful and raw about everything.
Yeah, I think that we love fairy tales. We love pretty pictures and stories that have, a happy beginning, middle, and end. But that's not our reality, and certainly wasn't my reality growing up. Was born to a mother who was, young and trying to figure out her way in the world. A father who, same thing. They didn't know what they were doing. Their relationship didn't last longer than a year. And then my father kind of disappeared. Not kind of. He disappeared from the picture, never to be seen again for the majority of my life. And my mother struggled to figure it out. And in that time period, I was raised by different family members and different people who were chipping in, which left me susceptible and vulnerable to a lot of abuse, molestation, neglect, and different things of that nature. And so that became my reality that I had to learn how to navigate. And it was, unfortunately traumatizing, but it definitely has made me into the person that I am today.
Can you tell just the listeners, because you talk about the abuse and the molestation?
Yeah. So for me, I was, my mother had different boyfriends. And of course, in their, being in our home, we didn't see eye to eye. They wanted to exercise their idea of what discipline was. And in one particular circumstance, that led to me being, a 10-year-old kid who was pummeled, beaten, punched, and just demolished. And from there, that kind of cycle was repeated by other men in the family. And then early on in my life, around 6 or 7, I was left with a family member who just took it upon themselves to, lure me into the back room and take my innocence. For a 6-7-year-old who didn't understand anything, I had no sex education. I didn't understand anything.
Right.
It was very disorienting and confusing, and me just trying to figure out what in the world is happening right now.
And did that just happen one time to you with the molestation?
It did. It happened that one particular time, but it set off a trajectory for me that lasted a lifetime, right? It set off something internally that made me say, wait, what just happened? And am I supposed to do this again? And so what ended up happening for me was I just began to explore sexuality and anatomy from all through elementary school, different kids, and it just really opened me up to a world that I just was not mentally or emotionally prepared to deal with. And it left its own marks on me as an adult.
Wow. Many of your mother's boyfriends were abusive physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that continued on for a long period of time, or?
That did. I think the last circumstance for me was I was probably about 14 years old. And I remember that particular circumstance where I was, choked almost to the point of not being able to breathe anymore, where I thought this was my last breath. I'm going to take it here. And my mother, used all her body weight to knock him off of me. And that was kind of the last straw. I think that was like, all right, this has got to stop. And, at 14 years old, that kind of put me on a very negative trajectory. I really felt abandoned and just like I didn't belong and I didn't have a space in society. And so I began to really act out, be very mischievous, very rebellious, and just very angry.
I mean, she basically saved your life.
She did. Literally, she did.
If she wouldn't have pushed him over, he would have potentially choked you.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
So this happened with many different people,
Yes. I mean, unfortunately, just growing up, I don't think I thought these were unique circumstances. I thought this was just life. This happens. I remember, one of my family members, he was going on a date, and his girlfriend at the time said, "Have you ever seen him talk to another woman?" And now, mind you, I'm 7. And I was like, "Sure. Saw him talk to a woman before we got here." And he slapped me because he was like, you're not supposed to talk about this particular thing. And I was like, oh. And I cried so loud that he put me in the trunk of the car and drove home with me in the trunk of the car because he didn't want to hear me crying. And afterward, he bought me a little book. Back then they had the book that goes along with the CD, and you listen to the CD and read along. It's a little chipmunk book. And that was his way of saying, don't tell anybody about what happened. And so it was kind of like, all right, I got a chipmunk book and I'll just be quiet. So those were just, unfortunately, a consistent theme that happened. And I didn't recognize or realize that this was not normal.
Because you said that he talks to other women so that she would get jealous, or that he basically, that was the reason?
Yeah. So I didn't know. He didn't want me telling her about this girl. I mean, he was trying to pick up another girl. Is really what it came down to. But he didn't want me to I didn't know that that's what he was trying to do. You know what I mean? So she got upset and he smacked me because I was like, shut your mouth.
Right.
Why did you say that?
Right. But you're innocent. You're young. Yeah.
No idea what's going on. So those are formative times in your life. Those times shape you, inform you, and inform you. And, you don't realize that you'll carry a lot of that weight even into your adulthood, which is probably why the music in the book and so on and so forth is so transparent, because those are things that needed to come out in order for me to be fully me and be fully free.
But it's like, I know you talked about trauma and about the book, that the body keeps the secrets,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how do you, do you feel like that's still trapped in your body?
Well, I definitely feel like there's more healing. I have a good friend that I pay to talk to called a therapist.
I was wondering if you did, because I was like, maybe you just were doing, because I know you're religious and and you really use that as a tool. I didn't know if you worked with a therapist or not.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I believe in God, and I believe God created therapists.
Okay, that's good to know. Oh, so you got a good friend. That's good.
Yes. So for me, that was very important to work through that healing, to work through that trauma and that pain, and to deal with some of those things. Because I didn't know that those things affect, I remember the first thing my therapist told me was that 2 broken people does not make a whole person. And so you just can't expect to be, I'm because I'm not them, I'm whole, but you come from two broken people, and their problems are going to have an effect. It's going to affect you. And so that was the eye opener for me that led me into the portal of getting help and really working through, some of those issues. Now, mind you, like you said, do you still wrestle with those things? That absolutely, they're always going to be a part of my journey. But it's kind of like when someone passes away, you mourn them, you're sad, but over time, you're not as just destroyed. You cry uncontrollably the first year. The next year, you may cry. The third year, you whimper, your nose gets red, and on and on. It always hurts, but you deal with it differently.
Right. And you continue to do therapy.
Continue. Absolutely. I'll probably be doing it, I don't know, for the foreseeable future. I don't have a cutoff date so far.
I know. I like therapy too. Yeah, I like therapy too, because I feel like, but I sometimes feel like there's a thought that like with therapy, like, oh, you don't want to be in there forever because, but yet and have it something that you depend on. But I also feel like it's super helpful too,
Right.
So I think it's a double thing.
Well, so, I mean, think of it like, I like a stylist. It's like, sure, I don't want someone to dress me every day, but if they can put me on the right trajectory for a time period, I'm going to always need to come back to them. I don't know what's in this season. Tell me what's in this season.
That's true. That's a good analogy. That's actually a good analogy, because you're always going to be doing different red carpets. So then maybe the next red carpet, you need something new. And the next red carpet, you can't just be like, I showed you one time and now you're going to know for the rest of your life. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel, do you forgive the people that abused you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I thought I did, right? Like, I think I thought I forgave them, but I realized I didn't once I started going through therapy. Because honestly, I think forgiveness is not just saying, I forgive you, I'm moving on.
Right.
I think forgiveness is more about you than it is about them. It's more about you letting go of the bitterness and the hatred that you have for somebody than it is about like that person. And I think I still allowed some of those people to, fester that bitterness within me that was unhealthy for me. They're living their lives. I mean, one of them is incarcerated, but they're living their lives, and I'm carrying around all this resentment and bitter and hurt. And so forgiveness was more for me to say, you know what? I don't know your story. I don't know what you've experienced. I don't know what led you to make these decisions that you made. And maybe you have some trauma of your own. I'm not excusing it. I don't accept what you did, but I forgive what you did, And so I think there's a difference between acceptance and forgiveness. Acceptance is like, it doesn't matter. No, it matters, but forgiveness is saying, I've moved forward, and I will not allow what you've done to me to create in me a bitterness that I'm going to carry around with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have you confronted them, or have you in the past, or?
Yeah. I've not confronted, honestly. I was always the type of person that was afraid of embarrassing them, kind of like a Stockholm syndrome, where you just begin to you start feeling sorry for the people who've treated you terribly. Right. And so I think I wrestled with that for a while. And then when I did address, the guy who choked me out, it was more in anger. It wasn't like it was more like, yeah. And I remember, and, I gave him a what for in that moment, but,
what's a what for?
I just, I gave him a what for. That sounds very old school. Then I gave him a what for.
Oh, what'd you do that for? Oh, a what for? Yeah. You got to teach me this. I got to learn. Because I'm going to give some people some what fors right now. No,
give them some what for.
I'm going to give them a what
for.
Give what for, yeah. So how did that work out? What happened?
you know, and they've never said it, but they never said it to me, but I get the impression from other people around them that that's something that they carry that they're ashamed of. They've apologized for it.
Really?
They did apologize for that. But then I have some other family members who have not apologized. And for some of them, I think they think, well, that just comes with the territory. That's just how things work. It's just
like you just have to live with it.
Yeah, it just is what it is. And so that's unfortunate. But again, if you hold on to those things too long, they hinder you from becoming who you're supposed to be. It's like I'm supposed to be a butterfly. I can't stay in the cocoon forever. I can't keep dwelling back on the caterpillar life I lived. I've got to fly. And so I've got to let that stuff go.
Sometimes though, when you say that, like, I think sometimes people go, God, I wish I could fly, like I wish I could, but you kind of can get stuck, right? Like in that. But I mean, I don't know, like, what do you think the key to is from going from that cocoon to that butterfly? Not focusing on the past or?
Well, no, I honestly think you have to address the past. That's what people are afraid to do. They're afraid to open that closet. Most people are like, I just want to pretend it never happened and move forward. And I think you have to open the closet. You have to address those things so that you can go through that tunnel of chaos and then come out on the other side. It's like, I did it. I went through it and I faced it. I addressed it. And now I've dealt with it. It's like a wound. If you have a disease, you don't just say, I don't have it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't have cancer.
Right.
I don't have cancer at all. It's like, no, let's address it. Even though you want to live in denial, because once you address it, you can change your diet now. You can change your activities now. You can get treatment now, and you can come out on the other side, hopefully better.
Right.
And I think that's what it took for me. Yeah.
That takes a long time, doesn't it? Or not necessarily?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, obviously it's not an overnight process.
Yeah. Do you, did you feel ashamed of like what happened to you, or did you kind of like of the abuse, of the physical or the sexual abuse?
That's a good question. I think I did, but not because I think I felt it in a different way than most people probably would. I felt ashamed because I thought I was weak. I thought I should have been able to do something about it, because mind you, I'm a kid. I don't know. I can't stop these people from what they're doing, but I thought I should have been able to. And so I think subconsciously I walk into adulthood thinking to myself, I've got to be stronger. I got, this is a bravado, false sense of machismo type of like, and it's like, that's not who you are. And you're letting these circumstances create a false narrative for you that you're weak and that you are defenseless. And the truth of the matter is those were adults and you were a child.
Right.
So I was ashamed because I didn't do better. And I think I carried that with me for a while. But, as far as the molestation and even the abuse, I think, our stories are not always pretty, but they're ours. And so if you embrace your story, then you've got power now, right? You've taken control of it instead of letting it take control of you. And so it's like, it's not pretty. It's not something that I wish upon anyone else, but it doesn't define me. It's part of my story, and I am who I am today because I went through that and I've used it in a better way. I always like to say, no one wants to eat a stick of butter. No one wants to eat, a cup of flour. No one wants to eat raw eggs or a whole cup of sugar. But when you mix them all together and you put them in the oven and refine it under heat, you get something good. You get cake. And so I'm allowing the cake to come forward and not focus on all those ingredients that were disgusting
individually by themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's really interesting. I just wanted to see like how you kind of moved through it, because sometimes people have a hard time with that. What was your, like, I know you went through like kind of a rock bottom that you talked about. What did that look like? What was that?
Yeah. Rock bottom for me was, mind you, I'm at the top of the top. Of course, you got Grammys, you got awards, you got celebrity guest lists, all of these particular things, but you still feel a sense of emptiness. And for me, I had spent so much of my childhood attaching my worth to people's approval. And it's because I was abandoned by my father. I went through all these traumatic events. So if I wasn't approved of, then I was in some sense worthless. And so for me, what had happened was that I had, both on a mainstream and on a faith-based side, ascended this hill. Well, I guess I didn't recognize and realize that, people are people, religious or not, they're people, and they're broken people. They have their own issues. And so oftentimes religious people walk with this pious, like I've got it figured out type of mindset, which is totally false. If anything, I would say I am I lean into my faith because I know I don't have it together, versus like I have it together because of my faith. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when the religious institutions kind of attacked me, oh yeah, you're doing songs with these people and you're consorting with, these sinful folks, so to speak. I think that was painful, but I would blame God and not blame the people. And that was part of my problem. So it was kind of like, oh, I don't know what, I'm disoriented spiritually now. Then I'm disoriented relationally as well, because, my marriage is all is on the rocks and it's looking bad. And then I'm disoriented emotionally because I'm going through a depression now, because nothing's making sense. How do I have all of this, but yet I'm just discombobulated everywhere? And so that was a point where I was just like, I'm done. What is the point? And, I think what happened for me was I got to a place where I realized, you know what? People will always let you down. They are not the object of my purpose or my source. And I had to begin to realize that if you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. I am not successful compared to what I do to them or for them. I'm successful compared to what I was created to do. And I had to focus in on that and not be concerned with everyone else's voices. Where's the voices that love me, that care about me? Let me zero in on those. And, let me zero in on my loved ones, my faith. And that really brought me to a healthier place. And
so what was the rock bottom? It was the faith coming against you. And then you you drank, did some. Right?
Oh man. Oh, you practically. Yes. I mean, what starts as a drink becomes, every time I hit the lounge, I've got to have 4 or 5 of them. It's like I'm drinking by myself all the time now. I'm taking pills for anxiety, and then those pills, you start abusing those pills and taking them with alcohol, and you're just creating this spiral. And now you have an alcohol addiction, and you're trying to kick these pills, which are creating more anxiety because you're having a withdrawal effect. It was terrible, 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 terrible. It's hell on earth.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. So, how'd you get out of it? How'd you stop? Was it just cold or?
Yeah. For me, it was cold because I woke up one morning in a clinical depression. And the clinical depression is a little bit different than just kind of like feeling sad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So clinical is like it's like my brain shut down. It was scary. And I was so petrified that, I was just kind of like the show where the kids are their inmates come and scare them, scared straight. Like I was scared straight, you know, it's kind of like, okay, I'm ruining my brain right now. I don't know what is happening, but I'm definitely ruining my brain. I've got to stop, you know, stop everything. And, you know, I stopped cold turkey, and got counseling, and, you know, that was what I needed. It wasn't easy. You know, I won't say that. Everyone can't do that.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be able to do it, but, you know, I live to see another day. It's been 3 years.
Well, 3 years since that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 3 years.
And how did you overcome? I mean, because clinical depression, that just meant like you just felt like you couldn't function well every day, right?
Right.
And how did you overcome that? Was that just through therapy, through multiple things?
Yeah, I mean, initially mine was really acute. My clinical depression was very acute, so I had to take medication initially.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell people all the time, take it. It's a cast for your brain. It's just a cast. You know, it's like you break your arm, you put a cast on it. You may not have to wear it forever, but you know, you wear it until you can function and heal. Some people will be able to take that cast off. Some people won't, and that's okay. You know, for some folks, their medicine is going to be like vitamin C. You just got to take it every morning. You know, it's whatever. But then, of course, therapy and the tools I learned in therapy. I did EMDR, which is like where you deal with trauma, and it helps erase a lot of that. And then I did cognitive behavioral therapy, which was great. And then met with a counselor and a therapist. And I wish I would have known sooner. Had I known all this 10 years ago, we wouldn't have this conversation, but I wouldn't be who I am.
That's
either,
true.
So,
so you did EMDR for a period of time.
I did it for about a year. I did EMDR for a year.
That's good. Yeah.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah. It was great.
I have to say, like, you were, you know, okay, so like, do you consider yourself more of like faith-based rap, or how do you consider, what's the best way to describe it?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, my music is art. And so my art will always reflect my heart and my perspectives. And of course, my faith is, you know, defining for me, but I don't want to prostitute my art for the sake of making sure people know, you know, what I believe.
Oh,
I want that to be natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I want to wear a nice outfit. I want to wear a nice outfit. It doesn't have to have like, you know, God created me on the front of the shirt. It's
or
like,
a picture of Jesus or
exactly. It's like, we want the art to be, you know, done well. And so, you know, that's kind of my perspective. Of course, you'll hear it, you know, fleshed out in my music or my writings. But, you know, I'm a human being, and I want people to know that as well, is that if you can relate to me on a human level, on an emotional level, then, you know, we can have spiritual conversations. Then we can, then you know, because I needed that. I wasn't raised in church or anything like that. So I needed to see people on a human, realistic level before I could have spiritual conversations with them. Just like, where are you? Are you going to be like weird and obnoxious with this? Or are you just like a normal person and we can just have a conversation about this? So.
I like how honest and raw and truthful and, you know, forward you are with stuff, but I don't see a lot of other rap people saying, here's what happened to me. I grew up in, you know, this terrible area, or I grew up, you know, they're not as honest. And it's like, do you get pushback from like other people? Like, oh, you're not as cool, or you're like the Lil Wayne of the faith base, or, you know, like you don't see Lil Wayne talking about that, do you? Like about his feelings?
No, but I think that's the product of you know, a lack of that consistent whole personhood that we just most of us didn't grow up seeing, especially like in the hip hop community.
Yeah.
So just being a whole person, you know, it's only been like recently that like in the last 5 years that Jay-Z has gone to therapy. So it's something that he now can speak to, but we were just taught to be everything against that. We were taught to, this idea of you got to figure this out on your own and you don't need any help and don't tell about your feelings. And some of that is because there's no room for that. That if you're vulnerable, you're weak. And if you're weak, then you're susceptible to being eaten alive out here.
Yeah.
And I guess I've just gotten to a point where I've become an elder brother, like to where I can say, hey, listen, I wish somebody would have told me that I'm not weak and that I can be vulnerable. And I think the tides are changing now, but it took time.
Well, that makes sense. I never thought of it like that. That like if you're weak, you could get killed. You could get eaten.
Yeah.
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 So there's no room for weak.
There's no room
or
for
to say, my feelings were hurt when you said that.
No.
It's like, get over it, because if you don't, you're getting run over. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. One of the things I read in your book is that, you grew up with not a lot, and that you had a mattress with like cinder blocks, and you felt, and you had no couch. And it's like, if you grow up like that, like, I just think, how do you get out of that poor mindset? How do you get to go, I can have everything now? It's, it's not just a switch that you turn on and go, guess what? I had nothing. Now I can have everything.
Yeah. I think it's a learning process. The cool thing about it is that, I wasn't an overnight success. I had gradual success. And so my life didn't just change overnight. There were just little things that happened. And I think that was helpful for me because I was able to grow into that space. I didn't just, I didn't know I was poor when we were poor. I didn't realize that. I thought, it was just cool.
Right.
We're functioning. But I remember the first time I got $1,000. And I was like, I was a grown man. I was like, I have $1,000.
That's a lot.
And it was like mind blowing to me. But it came after getting 200 and then 400.
Oh, I see. It wasn't like just thrown at you right away. Like, yeah,
exactly. And so it was kind of like, all right, what am I going to do different? And, making little adjustments and little by little, just making different adjustments. So I was fortunate in that way. Now I have some friends who were overnight successes, and that's a different story,
Yeah. Wow. How did you get it? Just so I feel like we've already gone over 30 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God, I could talk to you for all day. You have so many interesting stories, and it's like, and I see all your awards behind you. I feel like, is that kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know. Does it feel like your success behind you, like your armor, like I don't know. I feel like it's a good protector for you.
So, but you know what? That's the interesting thing, is that it was, and in a way that was part of my problem, because I allowed the successes to define me more than, I was, the little boy who was taken advantage of was just as valuable as the person with these awards.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And I needed to know that. I needed to know that I mattered, and I should have been cared for then, and I should have been respected then, and I should have been loved then. And I shouldn't have to win an award to be treated fairly, to be loved, to be respected. And so that was some of the unlearning I had to do, was because I constantly felt, it's kind of like in a relationship where you're like trying to, do you love me? Do you love me? What do I need to do to make you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me now? Do you love me now? And it's like, you're lovable, and you deserve to be loved. And it's not because of you having to constantly prove yourself. And so that's some of the work that I had to do, on myself, to say, what, my worth is not predicated on what I've accomplished, though I'm grateful and I'm glad. And that's a reflection of the awesomeness that's within me. But it's more about the gift that God has given me than it is about, people celebrating those gifts.
As opposed to going, look at my Grammy, screw you now. See, I'm a good person. Look at my BET award, screw you, double screw you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you can't do that in order to be like, to make it. Yeah. One of the things I have to ask a couple more questions and then we have to get into your style. And then I want to talk about your book real quick. But one of the things you wrote in your book was about fear. And I wondered, what do you fear?
That's a good question. I think I will always fear I'll always fear being alone, right? Because I was alone as a child, I'll always fear that. I'll always fear being abandoned or alone because that was something that I had to wrestle with. Now I know I'll have to wrestle with that and I'll be processing that for life. And hopefully as I get older, it won't be as terrible of a fear as time progresses. It's not as bad today as it was 3 years ago, but I think that's my fear is being alone. I was a serial monogamist before I, landed this plane here. Just the idea of people turning their back on me and saying, we no longer want to be in your world is scary, very scary.
You mean, are you talking about with your art or with your family? Because you have I feel like when you say that, I go, you have 3 kids, don't you? You have a wife, you'll never be alone.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. There's no one, my grandmother had 12 kids. And of the 12, I want to say one of the 12 has not been divorced, right? One of the 12 has not been divorced. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's always a fear of oh, shoot, there's dysfunction. I've just seen so much dysfunction growing up, and people leave and people go and families and people go to jail and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. And so it's training myself to say, hey, this is a different story you're living in right now. Right. It's okay. Calm down.
I see.
That's not going to happen, and so it's living in that reality.
I saw on your Instagram, you got in really good shape.
I did.
So is that part of your healing? Was that part of your
Absolutely.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. I think the endorphins from work, because I'm an addict. Okay. I'm going to be addicted to something. You know what I mean?
Let it be something good, right?
Exactly. Let it be something good. So for me, it's the endorphins from working out. I mean, it's sanity. It's 80% sanity and 20% vanity. I'll be honest with you. Okay. It's 20% vanity. It's just I like the way this looks, this feels. But it's definitely, very good for me emotionally. I also feel like I got something accomplished and I'm moving in a direction of progress. I think we all need to feel like that in life. We're moving towards something, getting accomplished.
Sure.
And so that's one place and one area where I feel like that happens.
Was it taking your body back? Did you have shame about that
I think that's probably included in there. I think there's definitely a sense of I am not owned. That's definitely when a lot of decisions that I've made have been that, right? I'm going to grow my hair out because it's mine, or I'm going to, work out and this is, I'm sculpting this. And so, yes, I would definitely say that's a part of it for me.
Because I saw a picture of you on Instagram where you were sitting on a couch, and then on the other side where you hadn't worked out, and then the other one, it's you're all ripped up. I was like, wow. It was you did a side by side of a long time ago or something. Did you do a program or something, or do you just have a trainer?
I worked with a trainer for a while. Yeah, I worked with a trainer for a while just to try to get in good shape and to because I needed some training wheels first. Now I can do it by myself, but at first I needed some training wheels. It's what am I doing? How do I do, what is this? So it was, regimented eating, all that type of stuff, but it was good for me. in that process. Yeah.
Okay, I have to talk about your style. So we're on style, because what is my show without style? So we have to ask.
Exactly.
So how do you determine what you're going to wear on stage, as opposed to, because I see you love certain brands. Like I see Balenciaga, I saw, Alta, it looks like you like sneakers. Like, how do you determine what you're going to wear on the red carpet, and what would you define your style as?
I'm definitely not a early adopter, right? I'm not the person that's like, I'm going to make my own way and create this thing. I would say I'm an appreciator of great art. So to me, style is art. And when someone can create a look that is attractive to me, then, I gravitate toward that. But I like being comfortable as well. So it's like, some people choose, I don't know the proper term, but function over fashion. I guess
function, right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm the type of person that I like my function to be fashionable. I guess it's like, so it's like, I want comfort, but I want it to be fashionable if I can. So yeah, I think there's a mixture there. I appreciate the time and effort and energy it takes to make designer things. I appreciate what the work people go through to do that. But at the same time, I also appreciate where people are like, I just want it to flow and look good on you and your frame and so on and so forth. And so that's another thing that I'm very appreciative of. So I like, if there's a word for it, maybe like where designer and leisure meet. Somewhere.
Because now there's athleisure, which is athletic and leisure, but maybe there's designer and leisure. Where it's comfortable. Right.
Exactly.
So who is one of your favorite? Do you have a favorite designer you like to wear, or there's a bunch?
I love Jerry Lorenzo.
He's great.
I think he's phenomenal. I love people I don't know their names, and I'm terrible at this, but their Japanese fashion has been really cool for me to see.
Do you have a stylist or no?
Yeah, I do. I work with a stylist. I have a couple people that I like to work with. One of them is a good friend, Chelsea Little, and she's very great. Another guy is Torre, and he's out in Los Angeles. And I like working with both of them. They're both very different. Chelsea has this very sophisticated kind of class. Chelsea would know what to wear to the White House if I was invited there. She's got this I know what you should wear there.
Right.
Where Torre is like, I know how you can make a statement, and have everyone paying attention. And so, it's like, I like working with both of them.
Oh, that's cool.
Chelsea's dressed me for a lot of red carpets.
That's great.
In the past, yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen you on the red carpet, and you got a cool vibe going on, and it's well put together, and fashion evolves all the time. What's one of the secrets that when you're on the carpet, that you're like, I always do this and it works? Or do you have any little secrets that have been successful?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like cut to my body. When things are like really fitted to my shape. I'm 6'4", broad shoulders. So when things fit around me like that, I think it's, it works well for me. Right. I have to work with what I have, the framework that I have going on here. So that's probably where I lean. But shoes has always been an Achilles because I'm a 14. So that's always been tough.
Like, who do you wear? Like Christian Louboutin, have you gotten, or Jimmy Choo, or
yeah,
Fendi?
I mean, everything from Gucci to, like you said, Balenciaga, Fendi.
Okay, my very last question. I always end this. You have been so gracious with your time. I'm taking all your time. You have so many good insights and so much good stuff. So my last question is, what would be one piece of advice or something that you haven't told anybody that could help somebody else?
That's interesting. I think that it's funny. I haven't told anybody this. My favorite artist of all time is Lauryn Hill. And I I met Miss Lauryn Hill backstage, and I was just telling her about how impactful she was in my life and how amazing I thought she was. And I said, you inspire me to do what I'm doing now, to give life and to give hope to people out there, to allow people to see that my scars can bring healing. When people see my scars, they believe that healing is real. And she said this to me, and I thought it was so profound. And this is what I would tell other people as well. She says, isn't that what I'm supposed to do? Isn't my job and your job now to inspire people to be the best versions of themselves? And I was like, wow. It was like, I'm thanking her, and she's like, you don't have to thank me. That's what I was put here to do. I'm here to inspire you to be a better version of you. Continue that moment, like kinetic energy. Keep this going.
Oh, pay it forward,
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's what I would tell someone is that you're here to be great so someone else will be great. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I want everybody to know you have to go and check out Lecrae's book, I Am Restored, How I Lost My Religion But Gained My Faith. You've done so much. I could read all these things. I got all this from your publicist. Love Beyond the Walls, Love Sinks In, portable hand washing basins funded by you throughout the Atlanta area, rebuilding Atlanta's West Side, Live Free in the U.S., Mass for People. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. I mean, collab partnerships, venture capital for African-American inventors. I mean, talk about paying it forward. You really are doing it.
Isn't that what I'm supposed to do, in the words of Miss Lauryn Hill?
There you go. There you go. Yeah. That's amazing. Wow, that's awesome. Lecrae, you have been so gracious. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. I felt like I wanted to write things down as we were talking, but we have a video, so we'll have it forever. There we go.
Right.
So everybody check out all of his things, the restoration single, the book, all of it. The book is available on Amazon, all the different websites. So many great things. I'm so happy that you came on the show, and thanks so much for coming.
Honored, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Katz Walk. Make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcast. A special thank you to executive producer Gerardo Orlando, producer Leah Longbreak, and audio engineer Dave Douglas.